Great news! There's a quick way you can save money. Switch to Geico. Geico could help you get great coverage at a great price, and it only takes 15 minutes to see if you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Go to geico.com today and see how much you could save.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airwaves of ESPN Radio, 250-plus markets across the United States of America, and, of course, nationwide over the airwaves of ESPN Radio on Sirius XM, Channel 80. Number to call up, as always, is 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. Looking at a couple of things I'm going to talk to. I shouldn't say a couple. There's so much stuff to get into today. There's the NBA, what's going on with Cleveland, what's going on in OKC with the Thunder, especially in light of what transpired Saturday night against the Golden State Warriors. Of course, I'm going to get into the Golden State Warriors, who are in New York tonight, the Mecca, scheduled to go against a team that doesn't deserve to represent the Mecca, that is the New York Knicks. I'm a New York Knicks diehard fan, will never apologize for it, but damn it, I need something. I need something better than a 24-37 record. I need something that's tinkering towards relevancy. It would be nice. I'm going to get into all of that today. Sean Miller, not coaching for Arizona, and, we ain't saying enough about that. This man didn't show up. But you had a kid that was out there as a freshman on the basketball court that, in the face of the shrapnel of criticism aimed in his direction, where people are chanting, "Where's the money? Do. Where's the money?" Talking about the $100,000 that Sean Miller was caught. FBI wiretap got him talking about a $100,000 payment to a player. We'll get into all of that today. Of course, I'm going to get into Tiger Woods in just a couple of minutes. It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. First order of business. Let me be very, very clear. I am here in the media capital of the world, Gotham City, known as New York City. And I got to tell you something right now. The reigning, defending NBA champions are in town. And I ain't happy about it. I don't know if I've ever shared this story with y'all, but I am one of those dudes who is not happy at all. Anytime I run into Steph Curry, it is not a good day. I have nothing against Steph Curry. I think he is the greatest shooter on the planet. I got nothing but love and respect for him. I do not like seeing him. The very existence of Steph Curry is the bane of my existence. He is not somebody I like to see. I like to watch him play. But when I see him up close and personal, face to face, damn it, ladies and gentlemen, it hurts. It hurts bad. And the reason why it hurts bad is because every time I see Steph Curry, I think about 2009. Which was the year he was drafted. And when I think about the year that Steph Curry was drafted, here's what I think about, ladies and gentlemen. Number 1 overall pick, Blake Griffin. Number 2 overall pick, Hasheem Thabeet. He went to Memphis. Number 3 overall pick, James Harden. He went to Memphis. I'm sorry to OKC. I apologize. Tyreek Evans, number 4, he went to Sacramento. Ricky Rubio, number 5, went to Minnesota. Johnny Flynn, out of Syracuse, went number 6 to Minnesota. They had the 5th and the 6th pick and missed on both. I mean, no wonder they had a new regime in Minnesota. And the number 7 overall pick to the Golden State Warriors was Steph Curry. Now, why would that annoy me and rake my last nerves? Because I'm a New York Knicks fan. And the number 8 overall pick, one pick after Steph Curry was picked by the Golden State Warriors, one pick after he would have landed here, the New York Knicks were forced to pick Jordan Hill. Need I say any more? When you are a fan of the New York Knicks, a franchise that hasn't won a championship since 1973, and you are literally one pick away from getting someone that I recognize and most basketball aficionados recognize as the greatest shooter we have ever seen in NBA history. Damn it, it hurts. It just hurts to see this man. And forget the 54 points he dropped at the Garden a few years ago when Mark Jackson was coaching the team. All of that's irrelevant to me. What hurts like hell is knowing that a shooter like that would have blessed the corridors of Madison Square Garden. And he didn't get picked 5th. He didn't get picked 3rd. The man got picked 7th when the New York Knicks had the 8th overall pick. So in my mind, if there's ever any question about whether or not the New York Knicks are cursed, that would be it. Because we had an opportunity to get Steph Curry. And it didn't happen. 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. That's some straight talk, wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Let me say, Steph Curry is great. He's phenomenal. As a player, as a person, it seems, the whole bit, I get all of that. It just hurts like hell to hear him, to see him in the Golden State Warriors uniform, knowing that he was so close to landing with the New York Knicks. But it is what it is, and we move on. And we move on to his teammate, Zaza Pachulia, and Saturday night, and what took place against the Oklahoma City Thunder. When Zaza Pachulia, nobody behind him, nobody pushes him, but he falls, the entire weight of his body falls on the leg of Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook goes down. It's about a 5-point game, give or take a few points here or there. Next thing you know, Golden State wins by 32. Just annihilates Oklahoma City in the second half. Pretty much the last 16 minutes of the game. Now, obviously, if you're Russell Westbrook, you got a problem with this. You got a big-time problem with this. You do not like this man. And if you think I'm lying, listen to Russell Westbrook in the immediate aftermath of the game when asked about the incident involving him getting hurt at the hands or the body of Zaza Pachulia. Take it away, Cat.
Did you see it? What it look like? What it look like? Did anybody touch him? Yes or no?
I didn't see the replay.
Oh, you didn't see it? But why you asking about something you didn't see?
I just saw
well, then, if you didn't see it, don't ask me a question. Don't ask me dumb questions, man. Obviously, it was intentional. So don't ask me, was it intentional? Nobody touched me, fell over my leg, tried to hurt me.
That was Russell Westbrook. You heard him. And you know what he thinks about Zaza Pachulia. But look at who comes to the defense of Zaza Pachulia. The one and only Kevin Durant. Listen to what Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook's former teammate, had to say.
He is clumsy. Don't get me wrong. A lot of big guys are. But I watched the tape. I seen Nick's foot get caught up in Zaza's leg and might have tripped him up a bit. I don't think he's kind of hurt less.
It's not that Zaza Pachulia fell. It's how he fell. I mean, he could have braced himself significantly better to take some of the potential weight off of Russell Westbrook. But he didn't seem to care. Now, in fairness to the Golden State Warriors, they emphatically come to the defense of their teammate and player. Whether it's an owner or a coach or player, you know what they're going to do. My point is, Zaza has a history. It wasn't just Kawhi Leonard. It was Gregg Popovich speaking up on behalf of Kawhi Leonard and going off about Zaza Pachulia. It's about Russell Westbrook. And the question is, what do you think should happen to Zaza Pachulia and what should the NBA do about it in terms of when it comes to protecting its stars? Because Russell Westbrook is a superstar. It was a nationally televised game. And there's history with Zaza Pachulia and players getting injured. I don't know what you can do in this particular situation because there's plausible deniability about the fall. But I know this much. Anytime I'm going up against Zaza Pachulia from now on, I'm going to have a goon on my squad. Going to be out there on that court. NBA can't deal with it, fine. We can find somebody else that will. As far as Kevin Durant, what was Kevin Durant supposed to say? What's he going to say? My teammate's a dirty player? That's what he's going to say? Of course he's not going to say that. And he shouldn't. He shouldn't. I don't even know why anybody asked Kevin Durant about that. What's he going to say? 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. We got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. Tiger Woods, LeBron James, and Gregg Popovich. Stan Van Gundy. Lord have mercy, you saw what he had to say. The list goes on and on. Jam-packed show coming your way. And so am I. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.
Hello, I'd like to deposit this to checking.
Fate is a fickle master.
What?
The future is uncertain.
Okay, and what's my account balance?
The horizon is cloudy. I see a long, treacherous voyage filled with great peril.
Look, can I just get a deposit slip or something?
A fortune bank teller. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I see a yellow-eyed serpent and a low APR.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I watched Tiger Woods yesterday. I watched him periodically throughout the last several days. 20-foot birdie putt, Sunday's first hole. Tee shot to set up a birdie on the par 3 7th hole. First sub-70 round in 3 years. Swing speed looked good. They got it at like 128.4 miles per hour, which is the fastest of any player for the last 3 years. Length in his game. That was another missing link throughout his struggles. Rectified, supposedly. He's feeling healthy. He's got some of his power back, some of the bat speed back, etc., etc. This is what they're saying. It's what they're saying. Let me tell you what I have to say. And I'm going to preface my comments by saying this is relatively controversial. These are not the opinions of ESPN, nor any producer at ESPN. This is yours truly. I stand alone on this. I don't think I stand alone, but I stand alone in my willingness to say it because I think it's important to point out. On First Take this morning, my television show every weekday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, on ESPN, First Take is aired, and there's a segment called Final Take. And a couple of times a week, I give a final take. And today, it was this on Tiger Woods. Take it away, Kat.
Ladies and gentlemen, trust that I know this. Tiger Woods has won 79 official PGA Tour events, 14 majors. He's 14-1 all time with the lead or a share of the lead heading into the final round of a major. At his height, he was the greatest golfer we've ever seen. His long game, his short game, and everything in between was just surreal. Again, I know this. And the fact that he was black in a sport that was never known for being too welcoming to folks with a darker hue only made Tiger Woods' accomplishments that more riveting, more mesmerizing. Bravo, brother. Hats off to you. Having said that, can we say this? That was a long time ago. So what's all the fuss about now? Tiger Woods just finished 12th in the Honda Classic event this weekend. That's 8 strokes back from a sudden death playoff. He finished 8 over par in a 3-hole stretch in a back nine redesigned by Jack Nicklaus years ago. In other words, he's nowhere close to what he once was and may never return to his old form. So what am I missing here? At some point, the fact that Tiger Woods hasn't won a major since capturing the U.S. Open in 2008 and that he hasn't won it all since capturing the WGC Bridgestone Invitational 5 years ago in 2013 cannot be the storyline. And if that's not going to be the storyline, why don't we stop playing games and just get down to saying why? It's because Tiger Woods needs his mojo back. It's because he can't get it. And guess what? We're all the reason why. What if we didn't care, y'all? What if we had wrapped our figurative shoulders around Tiger Woods and said, my man, we could give 2 cents about your personal life. Just keep handling your business on a golf course. Who knows what may have come of that? Instead, we placed our moral compass on his shoulders. The weight was so great, he looked as if he was drugged when he held that ridiculous press conference years ago telling the world, I am so sorry. Last checked, he didn't cheat on us. None of us were his wife, his children, his family. Yet we moaned and moaned away. Now look at us, desperate for Tiger to make golf interesting again to someone other than the avid golf fan. All because we wouldn't mind our damn business. That's what we get for messing up a great thing. It's what we get.
That is what I said earlier today, and I reiterate that point right now. To everybody out there, I want everybody to understand something here. I am not in any way condoning somebody getting married and engaging in infidelity or adultery, and, I'm not doing that. What I am simply saying is, for those of you who do, I'm at a struggle to understand how that's any of our business. Now, if you want to make the argument that in Tiger Woods' situation, he marketed himself as this wholesome individual, you understand, that did everything on the up and up. And so as a result of his transgressions being exposed, he's such a flagrant phony. And you know what? That's what this is all about. I'm down with that. Because I personally believe that what has hindered and hampered Tiger Woods for years and years and years is the fact that incident made him care about what people thought openly, including his competitors. Tiger Woods didn't give a damn about the competition. His whole thing was, and I'm quoting here, second place sucks. Those were his words. Am I lying, Jonathan? Am I lying, Kat? Religiously, those were his words. You couldn't talk to Tiger Woods and witness a smile on his face when he was finishing 12th. Now he's finishing 12th, and you got headlines raving about Tiger's back. Back to what? To what? And for those of you who support him and you want to call up here and point out the 79 official PGA Tour events, just stop it. You and I know damn well it's about the majors with this man. It's about chasing history. It's about chasing Jack Nicklaus. It's about catching them and surpassing them. And damn it, the number was at 14 in 2008. It's been a decade. And don't give me them back injury and the hip and the knee. Listen, you're worth damn near $1 billion. Trust me, with some time off, you can heal up. He could have healed this up years ago. But you know something? He was trying to play his way through the hypocrisy that got exposed and thus rained down upon him where he couldn't perform. That is what happened. You know who I bring up when I think about Tiger Woods? And maybe it's unfair because, Lord have mercy, if there's a man who should be happily married at this point in time in life, it is Derek Jeter. Lord, Hannah is something special, let me just say. But I regress. My point is, Derek Jeter lived his life for many, many years. He was on a single circuit. He was, quote unquote, out there. People speculated, but they didn't know. You know why? Because not only did he not advertise it, he didn't portray himself as something other than what he was. He talked about baseball. He didn't get into his life. So again, if you want to use that as a reason to get on Tiger Woods, fine. But the fact of the matter is, what goes on in people's bedroom is really none of our business. You don't know what kind of marriages people have. You don't know what kind of arrangements they make. Some people get married because they are happily married and in love with one another and just can't live their life without one another. Damn it, that's why we got 1-800-FLOWER sponsoring this show half the time. Because it's about what's in the heart. We get it. You trying to tell me there ain't marriages based on business arrangements? Have I made up the notion of open marriages? Was that me? Or is that something that's been in existence for Lord knows how long? We don't know what's going on inside people's bedrooms. Mind our business. Now, it's one thing to call Tiger out, which we did, and I was one of those who was included in that. But it's another thing to sit in judgment into perpetuity for this man. And we did it so long that we ultimately got this dude to look like Mike Tyson when he was with Robin Givens talking to Barbara Walters and ultimately admitted he was drugged. That's how Tiger Woods looked that day when he said, "I am so sorry." And as a result, he's never recovered. And look at him. finishing 12th, and y'all raving about him. I'm rooting for him, but I'm waiting for him to come back, man. And my attitude is very, very simple. I'm sorry to the Ryan Hurleys of the world, one of my buddies, and Jonathan Winthrop and everybody else. Damn it, I'm at the point where Tiger Woods, I don't care what you got to do to get back. Just get it back. Whatever works. Whatever works. Let's care about him, the golfer, and leave everything else to him, his personal life, and his business. Maybe if we convince Tiger that, he might really return. I'm just saying. 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. More to Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio in a minute.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it! 35 minutes past hour number one back here in the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. So much stuff to get into. You know, everybody's looking at the NCAA right now, who reported that it raked in like $1 billion in revenue from media rights fees, ticket sales, corporate sponsorships, and the proliferation of television ads anchored around the 3-week-long March Madness tournament. I mean, just looking at some of this stuff, $1 billion there. It's like 2016, if I remember correctly. The American Gaming Association estimates that the number of brackets completed is going to hit 70 million, and about 9.2 billion will be gambled on for March Madness. This is just a year ago. This is just a year ago, according to some article in Investopia. This was written in March of 2017. So imagine what it's going to be this year. You know, you think about stuff like that and you hear about Sean Miller, the coach at Arizona, not coaching. You see what one of his players was subjected to in terms of the vitriol from the fan base out there. And it's just crazy right now. That's something we'll get into a little bit more in hour number two. One of the other things I wanted to get into right now before I get to the phones was Gregg Popovich and what he had to say about LeBron James, the greatness of LeBron James, not just on the court, but off the court. Before I delve any further, listen to what Gregg Popovich had to say about the world's greatest player right now.
He's been a brilliant example for millions of kids, especially kids that of lesser opportunity who haven't had the same advantages as others. And they see in this guy somebody who's consistently exhibited excellence in the workplace. And it gives them a voice, lets them know that you can speak about anything. There really is a First Amendment. And I can have opinions as a coach, as a plumber, as an astrophysicist, as a lowly reporter. I can have whatever, opinions I want. And that's what's amazing about this. When you look at this guy, how many millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars he's given, tens of millions of kids that see him, that are inspired by him. It's kind of like the Black Panther movie. It's how cool is that for kids to see that and have that superhero? Well, now LeBron's been that for a long time, and for somebody to be totally numb to that and attack him in such a childish way really speaks more volumes about that individual than it does LeBron. He's very, very special. We should all be very proud that we have somebody like that who's willing to speak about a variety of topics, and you've listened to them all.
First, the good part. I completely agree with Gregg Popovich. One of the things that I've acknowledged rakes my nerves about LeBron James is this insatiable appetite he has to control the narrative and to be passive-aggressive in doing so, manipulating things behind the scene only to proclaim his innocence as to being knowledgeable or having anything to do with how a particular spin is disseminated or what have you. But that's all. LeBron James is a superstar athlete. He's a good man. I can't think of any athlete in American history who has ever represented his sport or professional sports as a whole any better than LeBron James. He has never been in trouble. He is a model citizen. He's an incredible role model. He's a hard worker who never took his skills and his gifts for granted, puts in the work, knows that he's a marquee on every single night in every single city, and more often than not answers the bell. He's socially conscious. He cares about communities, rife with those that are disenfranchised and desolate. You can't say enough about him. You just can't. And when he is gone, he is going to be sorely missed. He's that valuable. He's that special. He's that worthy of such praise. Even when I'm being critical of him, I'm just picking apart something because you're talking about him all the time. But make no mistake, having said all of that, I am never delusional about the greatness of this man. And more importantly, what he represents and what he means to various communities throughout the United States of America and beyond. He is a worldwide figure of the highest regard as it pertains to an athlete. He deserves our respect and our admiration, and I applaud everything Gregg Popovich said about him. Here is the flip side. As it pertains to Gregg Popovich, to the National Basketball Association, are you going to find him too? Because even though Magic wasn't talking about off the court issues and what have you, here's the facts. Magic Johnson was fined $50,000 for applauding the Greek freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Talking about he's a great player and he's going to lead them, the Milwaukee Bucks, to a championship one day. And because of that, the NBA fined him $50,000. But Gregg Popovich can wax eloquently, heaping praise upon praise upon praise upon the shoulders of LeBron James. What is the NBA going to do about that? And make no mistake, I'm not advocating that Gregg Popovich should be fined. He shouldn't be. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, what the hell you fine Magic Johnson for? And if you fine Magic Johnson, what you gonna do now? It's just a question. It's just a question. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Your calls and more in a minute. Discussing Tiger, discussing LeBron, discussing Russell Westbrook versus the Golden State Warriors and beyond. Plus, Golden State's at the Garden tonight to take on the New York Knicks. There's a massacre in session. More of the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio in a minute.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor raw performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Couple of things that I want to get into before I get to the calls. First of all, congratulations to Alex Rodriguez. He's going to be a special advisor to the New York Yankees, along with Reggie Jackson, Hideki Matsui, and newcomer Nick Swisher. He was a special advisor to Hal Steinbrenner last season. Now he's going to be a special advisor to GM Brian Cashman this upcoming year. This is while he's doing baseball for ESPN. We are lucky to have Alex Rodriguez talk baseball because the man knows baseball. And I thought that team they had on Fox with him and Frank Thomas and those boys, I thought they were exceptional. I really, really did. All of them talking baseball. I thought it was great. I love the fact that A-Rod's going to be doing baseball for ESPN. I don't understand how he's doing baseball for ESPN while being a special advisor to Brian Cashman. That's a different story for another day. But nevertheless, the man knows baseball, loves baseball. And the fact that the New York Yankees are willing to forgive him considering the notorious steroid cheat that he was, as is written in today's New York Daily News, page 37 to be exact, if you want to look it up, shows that the New York Yankees are willing to take the high road. Unless, of course, we find out it was negotiated in his contract with the Yankees. When I retire and I walk away from all of this money, you still owe me. You know, keep me on here so my reputation can be upstanding. I'm not going to be that cynical. because A-Rod knows baseball. And I'm glad that he's going to be involved in the capacity that he's been involved with it because he deserves it. You're that knowledgeable about the sport of baseball, more power to you. More power to you. That's it for now. We'll see where it goes from there. To the phones we go at 888-729-3776. Let's go to Rob in the Bronx. You're live with Stephen A. Talk to me, Rob.
What's going on, Stephen A? The Knicks are irrelevant right now. I don't even know why we even waste time talking about the Knicks. You're 50. I'm 49. You from Queens. I'm from the Bronx. We came up on some real good New York Knicks teams. And Porzingis, I feel if he's one of these young players that got the mindset where he wants a ring or a championship, he's leaving the Knicks. The Knicks can't even get a superstar here, Stephen.
Well, what role do you believe Kristaps Porzingis should play in them getting a superstar here? I mean, if you can open your mouth and speak up on behalf of Carmelo Anthony, if you could speak out against Phil Jackson, which, by the way, assisted in James Dolan's willingness to let Phil Jackson out of his contract and let him walk away with $24 million for doing absolutely nothing, instead of completing his contract, what role do you think Kristaps Porzingis can play in ultimately recruiting a superstar? Because isn't that ultimately what this comes down to? His ability to get a superstar to want to come to New York?
Absolutely, but Kristaps, he's still a developing player himself. He's still young.
Yeah, but the fact that he's developing and he's 7'3" and still could average over 20 points a night and knows how to speak English well enough to recruit a player to want to come and play with him, not to mention actually playing a game of basketball, shouldn't he have some ability to recruit?
He should, but I don't know why he doesn't. I don't know why any superstars.
How do you know? You might not have tried yet.
This is the former mecca of basketball. We ain't been a mecca of basketball in how long?
No, I don't call it the mecca of basketball. I call it the Mecca. When I'm talking about the Mecca, I'm talking about the city and overall with a potpourri of things. I want to talk about basketball. Why the hell would I call this the Mecca of basketball with the Knicks and the Nets in town?
Absolutely.
All right. So hold me accountable for what I say. Don't assume what I'm saying. Quote me.
Quote you, brother. Another question I got for you. Who has more to prove? My man LeBron James in Cleveland or James Harden in Houston? Not to mention, we won't forget about that last playoff game.
Right now, James Harden. Right now, James Harden, because of that last playoff game against San Antonio. James Harden, finally with Chris Paul having arrived, James Harden has to show up in the postseason the way that he does during the regular season. He just has to do it because it's the only way Houston's going to have a chance. So he has to do that. Nobody can deny that. And for them to even try would be silly. Appreciate the call, bro. Chris in L.A., you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Hey, Stephen A., good afternoon. Two quick things. I want to touch on what happened with Cleveland. Everybody put them up front and it's sweeping through the East. I mean, I just don't see it. LeBron still doesn't have that closer. He has more on his shoulder this year than in previous past years. And I want to touch on what I saw from OKC and the Thunder. OKC and the Warriors, I'm sorry. What I think separates Oklahoma City and Houston, why I would give Houston more of a shot, throw records out the windows, because Oklahoma City, Stephen A., does not have enough guys who make the extra plays for their team. If you look at Steven Adams, I feel like he's the only person who puts his body on the line and makes the extra plays. It used to be Robertson, but he's no longer there. You look at Houston, P.J. Tucker, Capella, Luke Richard, all those guys make the extra plays. I'm watching the game. I'm watching the best shooter in basketball shoot wide open jump shots because guys don't want to make the extra rotation. I don't understand it. Like, if you say you want to beat the Warriors and they're who you're going for, those extra things need to be accounted for. Like, the extra rotation, Steph should not be shooting wide open jump shots because guys don't want to make the extra rotation. We should be running those guys off the three-point line, going off the loose balls. And Steven Adams is the only person on that roster today that plays significant minutes, Stephen A., to make those extra plays. And if they want to compete in the West, they're going to have to do that.
They're not going to do it. And that's why they're not going to be the major player we thought they would be, because their bench they just don't have the personnel on their bench to get it done. The big three is tailor-made for Golden State because Golden State has length at practically every position defensively. So because you have that length, it's going to be in the hands of Russell Westbrook to take over because that's the only thing Golden State doesn't have an answer for. They have an answer for everything else. Look at what they did with Paul George shooting 1 of 14. So we got to take that into consideration. consideration. And in terms of your first point about Cleveland, I'm still not convinced about anybody else in the East. It's still Cleveland's to take, and I think they're going to take it. Hour number 2 up next with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Great news. There's a quick way you can save money. Switch to Geico. Geico could help you get great coverage at a great price. And it only takes 15 minutes to see if you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Go to geico.com today and see how much you could save.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Welcome. Tower number 2 of the Stephen A. Smith Show right here on ESPN Radio, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airways of ESPN Radio, 250-plus markets across the United States of America, and, of course, nationwide. Sirius XM channel 80. Number to call up, as always, is 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. Spent the first hour talking about Tiger Woods, talking about the Knicks hosting the reigning defending NBA champion Golden State Warriors tonight, the massacre that appears to be imminent. Kevin Durant's in town. Steph Curry's in town, something I'm never happy about because I'm a native New Yorker, diehard Knicks fan. And Steph Curry, in 2009, was picked 7th. The New York Knicks had the 8th pick. One more pick and Steph Curry's a New York Knick. Because Mike D'Antoni and Donnie Walsh and those boys were clearly going to draft Steph Curry. Didn't work out, wasn't meant to be. And New York is still suffering. Couple of items to move on about. I also mentioned Gregg Popovich and his words of reverence about LeBron James. And although I'm not advocating for it, bottom line is simple. If Magic Johnson could get fined for being complimentary of the Greek freak Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks, claiming that this guy's going to win a title one day for Milwaukee because he's so great, and he gets fined, is Gregg Popovich getting fined for his laudable words towards LeBron James? It's a legitimate question. It's worth an answer. 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. A couple other things I want to point out. Just like I gave props to Alex Rodriguez for being back with the New York Yankees, I can't wait to see Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge in the Yankee lineups. Who's going to hit more home runs this year? Which one of them? I'm going with Stanton personally. Some of y'all might pick Judge. We shall see. We most definitely shall see. Also going to get into Des Bryant a little bit later because he's making noise for all the wrong reasons as far as I'm concerned. He's not looking in the mirror. I will remind him what that mirror should look like. Something that I'll be talking about as the show continues to progress today. The other thing I needed to get into was Stan Van Gundy, coach of the Detroit Pistons of the National Basketball Association. He was being interviewed recently, and he was asked a question about the NCAA and their one-and-done rule. Here was his response.
The people that were against them coming out made a lot of excuses, but I think a lot of it was racist, quite honestly. And the reason I'm going to say that is I've never heard anybody go up in arms about, oh my God, they're letting these kids come out and go play minor league baseball, or they're letting these kids come out and go play minor league hockey. They're not making big money, and they're white kids primarily, and nobody has a problem. But all of a sudden now, you've got a black kid that wants to come out of high school and make millions. That's a bad decision. But bypassing college to go play for $800 a month in minor league baseball, that's a fine decision? What the hell is going on? They should be able to transfer schools every year. I mean, the NCAA, the one thing I know about the NCAA is the last group of people they care about are the, as they call them, student athletes, which is part of their ability to promote themselves, and they don't care about them at all. So a coach can leave in football and skip the damn bowl game and screw the kids he just coached. That's fine. But if a kid leaves, he's got to sit out a year? Come on, man. The NCAA is one of the worst organizations, maybe the worst organization in sports. And they certainly don't care about the athletes. And they're going to act now like they're just appalled by all these things going on in college basketball. Please, come on. It's ridiculous. And then it's all coming down on coaches who they're playing the game as it's been laid out for them, and they all know what it is, and they have choices to make too. So I understand Mark Fox and what he said. It starts with the coaches. I would say coaches aren't blameless, but I think it starts higher than that.
Couple of things. First of all, Stan Van Gundy said a lot there. We applaud Stan Van Gundy's courage to say the things that he says. It takes a conscientious observer to speak out the way that he did. That's fair. But I think it's important to point out a couple of things. Number one, the one and done rule is an NBA rule. It's not an NCAA rule. Okay? It's the NBA. He was talking about the NCAA, but he attached culpability to the NCAA instead of the NBA with that particular rule. Number one. He was right about the coaches, though, in terms of a player should be allowed to transfer every year because coaches can leave and get paid elsewhere. But somehow, some way, players have to transfer, sit out a year, et cetera, et cetera. So it's prohibitive towards the player, but not necessarily the coach. That's number two. One would argue that on a particular day like today, that ain't the day to make the argument because Sean Miller, head coach at Arizona, which nobody's really talking about that much, didn't coach the last game. After reports revealed that an FBI wiretap has him on recording discussing a $100,000 payment to a particular player. Aiton, I believe is his name. Is that the correct pronunciation? This kid that's going to be the number one overall pick in the NFL draft in all likelihood because he's that big time. I mean, this kid is special. No question about it. Got a lot of potential. And I can't ignore what I'm seeing from him right now. And in the midst of all of that, with fans chanting for him, where's the money? Where's the money? They were going off about him. He still balled out. Dropped 28 and 18. It wasn't a loss to Oregon. No doubt about that. But nevertheless, you can't escape the fact that this kid showed up and performed. DeAndre Ayton. Kid can play. And supposedly he received some money. His parents, through his agent, wants an apology and wants it addressed by the FBI because their son has been implicated and their son had nothing to do with it. And they're categorically denying there's any truth or veracity to these reports. But nevertheless, Sean Miller didn't coach that game. And Sean Miller may very well lose his job. They got you on tape. It's a wrap. If they got you on tape and $100,000, those words come out of your mouth and you talk about paying a player, it's over. It's over. You ain't getting around that. But getting back to Stan Van Gundy and what he had to say, because there are some people that's going to take issue with what Van Gundy had to say. Let me say this, and this sentiment was echoed to me by someone that heard Van Gundy, who I respect, that's very, very knowledgeable about these issues pertaining to the NCAA and beyond. They sat up there and didn't completely poo-poo what Stan Van Gundy was saying. Not at all. But they did point out this little caveat. The rule itself isn't racist, but the effect is. Because economics are the basis of a business, of a revenue-earning sport. The NCAA knows that. But they still resist change because they're all about control, particularly at the price of entry. You're coming into their sport. This is what they're doing. And when you take into account what Stan Van Gundy is saying, where words like racist, racial insensitivity, and all of this other stuff, it doesn't mean that you're white, so this is how you feel. No, that's not what anybody's saying. It doesn't even mean that you're targeting minorities and saying, let's keep them down while we uplift others. But if the results of the rules in place ultimately have that effect, and you stand idly by in the face of facts and do absolutely nothing about it, then those are the kind of accusations that are going to get levied against you. There's no way around that. If you're going to sit up there and two basketball players get into a fight, or two NFL players get into a fight, and they're called thugs and hoodlums and beyond, but the fight takes place in Major League Baseball, or the fight takes place in the National Hockey League, and you say, well, we'll police ourselves, and there's no real ramification or repercussion, tantamount to what the other sports where there's a predominant number of blacks playing in it, what do you think people are going to say? So you have to address it with the same degree of fervor to make sure that the playing field is equal. We have to remember why sports is so valuable to us. It's such a fabric of our society. Because it's supposed to be the closest thing to a meritocracy that we have. It's not just about the games. It's about the veneer and the element of fairness that comes attached with it. That makes us say, all things being equal, look at what we got. We're witnessing greatness. That's why we can have an NBA, the NBA, which has successfully globalized its brand, but only has one team from out of this country, and they're in Canada and Toronto. Everybody else is within the corridors of the United States of America. We don't just call them NBA champions. We call them world champions. Do you know why we do that? Because the NBA has globalized its brand, and it embraces talents from all over the globe. So it's universally recognized as the greatest basketball league in the world. And it's justified due to the greatest players in the world coming to play in this league. Therefore, you have the appearance of fairness. No one's being ostracized and kept out. Stan Van Gundy is alluding to the fact that you can't necessarily say the same about the NCAA when it comes to rules and regulations that are implemented and how it affects one group and the impressions and perspective given compared to other groups. In that regard, he has a point. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Back to your phone calls in a minute. We're talking Stan Van Gundy. We're talking Gregg Popovich. We're talking LeBron. We're talking the NCAA. And, of course, I'll get into Des Bryant in a minute, too. What the hell was he talking about? I'll explain in a minute. You're listening live to Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Jenny had a dream of joining the national bobsled team. She worked out relentlessly and knew that if she just refused to give up, one day her dream would come true and she'd stand triumphantly up on the podium. But when her kids reminded her that she was 52 and she lived in Texas, and maybe she started dreaming this dream a little late in life, she gave up on not giving up. But then she heard how Geico could save her money on car insurance, so she switched and achieved that dream instead.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Looking at NFL Live during the break, D'Angelo Williams, former Carolina Panther, former Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously didn't have the kindest words to say about the New York Giants since there's this debate about Odell Beckham Jr., whether or not he should get his money. You're damn right he should get his money, but he shouldn't be on Twitter agreeing with anybody about not playing during the preseason or whatever. If you're not going to play, now don't play. But don't voice your intent beforehand. Don't do what it takes to alienate a franchise you're looking to get paid from. That's just my belief. D'Angelo Williams, give him credit where credit is due. He's very open about the fact that he played in Carolina. He played under Gettleman, and he basically said this. Listen up.
D'Angelo, would you play for the New York Giants if they offered, knowing your history with Dave Gettleman?
Okay, so I'm not even going to start with Dave Gettleman. I'm going to talk why I would not join the New York Giants, because they have issues up along the front offensive line. The offensive line, they have some issues and some holes that they need to fill there. A running back can't fill those holes. It's putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. So until they shore up that offensive line, Eli Manning is going to continue throwing on his back. The running back's going to continue to run into a wall, and the wide receivers are going to continue to be pissed off that they can't get the ball. So,
He didn't answer the question.
Right. So getting back to Dave Gettleman, he has a lot on his plate, and not only that, I couldn't play for him because players that he don't bring in or that he doesn't bring up, he doesn't have the same level of respect for them as he has for those guys that he have a long-standing relationship with, and that's where we fell out, or not necessarily fell out. That's why I ended up getting cut from the Panthers.
So it was because you didn't have that history with him.
I didn't
you were
have
brought on.
Right. Eli Manning is safe because he was there when Gettleman was there, so he's safe. Everybody else, including OBJ, they'll have trouble. But the only thing that OBJ has over everybody else is the fact that he is the face of that team. He's the face of that franchise, and Dave Gettleman will go before OBJ does.
Yeah.
You have it. That's the word that's been out about Gettleman for years. I don't know Gettleman. I've never met him. I'm not going to disrespect him. I know he's a capable executive because he's somebody that guided the Panthers to a 15-1 season, a couple of playoff berths, not to mention a trip to a Super Bowl. And he was around with the Giants when they won Super Bowls as a player personnel director. So I got to give credit and respect where it's due. But those are the kind of things that players say about him. So it's going to be real interesting to see how things unfold. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, which is presented by Progressive Insurance. Protecting your small business is a big deal. Cover what you've worked so hard for. Visit progressivecommercial.com. One of the other things I wanted to get to before we went back to the calls, I went back to the calls, was Des Bryant. Now, Des Bryant obviously hasn't had the greatest season the last couple of years. We all know this. It's not a secret to anybody, okay? Des Bryant is of the mindset that he's being screwed over in the court of public opinion, evidently. He doesn't believe that people are truly, truly appreciating him. And he basically was giving a pep talk to a bunch of youngsters on the come up who aspire to be in the NFL someday. He talked about how you shouldn't jeopardize your future. You shouldn't play injured. And anybody who tells you otherwise, tell them to kiss your you-know-what. Seems to have a lot of animus towards a few people. Let me say this. Des Bryant can ball. Back in the day, a few years ago, he's a flat-out superstar, one of the best receivers in football. Can he still get it done? Sure he can. Has he gotten it done? No. Des Bryant has lost a step. Once upon a time when he was open, but even if he wasn't open, that is no longer the case because he doesn't go up and get it the way he used to. It doesn't help that Tony Romo is no longer throwing him the football, that Terrence Williams and Cole Beasley are not viable number 2 options the way they once were, that Jason Witten has clearly lost a step and the offensive line isn't what it once was. But the bottom line is that when you look at Dez, he looks like he lost a step. Doesn't mean he can't play. Doesn't mean he can't produce. It just means he isn't what we once looked at him as being. Des Bryant was a top 5 receiver in the NFL. Is anybody going to call up here and say he's a top 5 receiver right now? The answer is no. It's not Antonio Brown. It's not Julio Jones. He's not Odell Beckham Jr. He's just not. That's the reality. And that's what he has to live with. I wish him luck. Hope that he has a great year this year. But the jury's still out on him. Simple and plain. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's the number to call up. Let's go to Scott in Cali. You're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Stephen A. Yeah, big fan. I appreciate it. Appreciate you taking the call. Yep. Real quick, I just wanted to say I wish Steve Kerr would call my wife and give her some advice so maybe I could run a play or two or call a play or two every now and then. That'd be helpful. And second of all, about Tiger.
I don't understand the relevancy bringing up your wife. And if you're going to, and let me say this to you, I'm going to be fair to the women out there in this world. You're going to call up and bring up your wife. You need to tell us your name. And you need to tell us your name and you need to tell her, us her name. That way you ain't using these radio airwaves to be a punk. You understand? Be respectful to your wife. Be respectful to your wife, or be man enough if you're going to be disrespectful to tell us who you are and then tell us who she is so she'll know her husband's calling on the airwaves to talk about her. Otherwise, you don't get to do that.
My name is Scott Sawyer, and my wife is Alina Sawyer, but the truth of that is that it's probably better that she calls all the plays, because when I do that, things tend to go wrong.
Smart man. Now, I like how you cleaned that up. Very good. Good guy. Go ahead.
So, Stephen A., about Tiger, I understand, you said, he finished 12th, and everyone's making a big deal out of it. And you're right, it's not a big deal. He's not 12th is hardly anything to brag about. But here's my take on the whole thing is when he was running off tournament after tournament, he was winning, he was doing well. In my mind, Tiger Woods has 3 different lives. He had his sex addiction that he dealt with and all that stuff. He had his home life where he had to be a dad and a husband, and then he had golf. And in my opinion, I feel like after everything came out, he got caught. Things went upside down. All he had to focus on at that point was golf. So then what happened is he starts changing his swing. He starts, changing this, changing that. And although to a normal human being, I feel like somebody that would have, an ability to focus their time on what they love and like golf, that would make them better.
Okay.
I feel like it clearly made him worse because golf was like the last thing on his mind. He had to hide this and he was going through this, and I feel like he just went out and played. And because
let me stop you. Let me stop you because I can't let you go on and on and on my show. But I got to tell you this. I don't think that it was. I just think that he made such a concerted effort to make people believe what he wanted them to believe about him personally, instead of playing golf and telling everybody to kick rocks about everything else. And ultimately, when you live the life of a phony and you get exposed, it's embarrassing and it's something that you simply can't take. But if he hadn't been a phony, okay, and there were people that just liked him and people that just disliked him, I think he'd still be kicking people's butt. But he's preoccupied with being liked as opposed to being a winner. And I think that's what gets in his way.
Thanks for the time, Stephen. I appreciate
it. Thank you so much. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. We'll continue talking about Tiger, A-Rod, LeBron, Pop, Stan Van Gundy, Des Bryant. The list goes on and on. And so do I. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Some folks with a billboard, somebody paid for a billboard about LeBron James in Philadelphia, talking about hashtag complete the process. Get LeBron James to Philadelphia. I don't know if he'll do it. You hear some people talking about some folks in LeBron's camp is looking for a home and, schools for his kids rather than Philadelphia. On the outskirts of Philadelphia, we heard the same thing about L.A. before. Who knows? Who the hell knows? As it pertains to LeBron James, it is interesting to say this much. LeBron with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, damn. That is something to fantasize about. Doubt it'll happen, but who the hell knows with LeBron? Who the hell knows? The other thing I want to get into, did y'all see this story about Jonathan Martin? Y'all remember that name? Big boy, was a member of the Miami Dolphins and was being bullied by Richie Incognito, 320 pounds being bullied by Richie Incognito. That's not to say you can't be bullied just because you're a big boy, but damn. I don't know what else to say. Well, nevertheless, here's what happened. For those of you who didn't know, he posted a troubling Instagram post. This is via a report from the South Florida Sun-Sentinel's Omar Kelly. Citing a source, Kelly writes that it's unclear whether Martin was forced to undergo a mental health examination under the Baker Act or if he voluntarily checked himself into a facility for treatment. We don't know. All we know is that Martin was detained by the LAPD this past Friday after his Instagram post featured a gun, shell casings, and the names of Harvard Westlake. That's the prestigious high school Martin graduated from before attending Stanford. The Dolphins and two of his former Miami teammates, Mike Pouncey and Richie Incognito, the guy that was accused of bullying him. And the post on Instagram read, "When you're a bully victim and a coward, your options are suicide or revenge." That's what was written on the photo. After learning of the existence of the post, Harvard Westlake officials decided early Friday morning to close the school for the safety of students and staff. Jonathan Martin's post came a little more than a week after the mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, in which 14 students and 3 teachers were murdered. And even after all of that, an LAPD spokesperson told Omar Kelly from the Sun-Sentinel on Friday that Martin was, quote, no longer in custody. And an update was not available. if he's dangerous enough for the high school to feel the need to cancel school for the day, to keep the kids safe. And we know that the Instagram post is him, looking at those folks along with 2 former teammates in Miami. If you're going to let him out, is it too much to ask that you at least know where he is? Just going to let him out? And nobody has any kind of update, huh? 888-SAY-ESPN. That's the number to call up. Let's go to Joey in L.A. You're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, good afternoon, Stephen A. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Anytime. I just wanted to talk about Alex Rodriguez and his new role with the Yankees. I am all for it. I'm all for it. I think it's fantastic. I remember you saying in years past, if Mark McGwire had a job, then Barry Bonds deserved a job at the big league level, and I could say the same for Alex Rodriguez.
You're right. Correct.
He has a much bigger impact on the kids, in particular Melky Cabrera and Robinson Cano as a leader, than was made known to the public. It was those 2 players who respectfully spoke up on their leader and mentor and the workout regimens he used to put them through during the pregame.
Mm-hmm.
I think Alex is going to be the perfect guy for the now baby Bombers. I think he'll be great for a guy like Giancarlo Stanton.
He's just a special advisor, and he's going to be doing work for ESPN or what have you. I mean, you're a special advisor to Brian Cashman. Chances are you're just there when he picks up the phone to call you, give you 2 cents, and you might show up to a few practices or a couple of game days. That's about it. A few game days, rather. That's about it. I mean, it's not like he's working with the Yankees every single day. Let's not overblow it. You know what I'm saying?
But I believe this is a stepping stone to him having a bigger role down the road. I would not rule out the possibility of him being in talks of their manager down the road. And I have all the faith in Aaron Boone.
Well, I'll tell you this much. If he wants to keep J. Lo, he might not want to manage. You're on the road that much. I mean, I don't know how that's going to help him keep her.
You have a very good good point right there.
Right. He would need to be around, and that's not somebody you want to lose. You don't want to lose J-Lo. I'm just saying. Appreciate the call. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Your calls to close out the show in a minute. You're listening live to Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. Let's get right to the phones before we get on out of here today. I'll be at Madison Square Garden tonight. The reigning, defending NBA champion Golden State Warriors are getting set to go against the New York Knicks. My prayers are with the New York Knicks. My prayers. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Jimmy in Queens. You're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Stephen A., how are you?
I'm great. Talk to me.
I got to take issue real quick with some of the stuff that I hear on your show, if that's all right. If you give me 1 second. Real quick with the Steve Van Gundy thing, right?
Stan Van Gundy.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Stan Van Gundy. Mm-hmm. He's crying about the one rule, kids can't go pro. It's a racial issue. Is he aware of the facts that if you try to go pro as a baseball player, you're going to be in the minor leagues for 5 or 6 years, which the NBA doesn't have? Once you sign with a college as a baseball player, you can't go pro for 3 years.
Oh, he's aware of that. But that's not the point he was alluding to. What he's saying is that he was addressing the principle that if somebody came straight out of high school and went to the minors and got paid, you wouldn't have a problem with it. You wouldn't hear the same kind of uproar that is applied to individuals in other sports when they make those decisions. So he's talking about things from a societal issues to that degree. I don't believe he made the right call by pointing out the NCAA when the one and done rule is the NBA rule. Well, go
ahead. All right. Now, if you don't mind, one more thing.
Sure.
Last week, the LeBron James, Lauren Ingram disaster that was going on, right?
Sure.
As soon as she told LeBron to shut up and dribble, it immediately became a race issue, which most things do. But no one appeared to talk about her book that she wrote that was labeled "Shut Up and Sing."
Stop right there.
The sing is
Stop right there. You told me, you called up on this show just a second ago, right, Jimmy? And what you said is you wanted to take me to task for that. If you go back and listen to the tapes, one of the things I highlighted was the fact that she told Jimmy Kimmel, shut up and make us laugh. She told the Dixie Chicks to shut up and sing. She told Robert De Niro and others to shut up and act. I most certainly pointed those things out.
I listened to that show all day. I must have forgot hearing it because I certainly didn't.
It's right there. It's right there, sir. I most certainly brought it up. Absolutely.
And one last thing, if you don't mind.
Sure.
It makes me sick how sports turn to race so quick because where I grew up, that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
You go back, I'm talking months and months ago, when Michael Bennett was arrested in Vegas, it went right to race. Immediately, especially on your show, went right to race.
Well, let me tell you, hold on. It went right to race because Michael Bennett accused them of it. So if you have an athlete that was out in Vegas that literally sat there and said, this is what I believed it to be, that's when it became a debatable issue, number one. Number two, if you are in a situation where you feel victimized, and these are your reasons why. There may be instances where you agree. There may be instances where you disagree. But what you can't do is ignore what the person is feeling who actually had to endure it. And if that's how they feel, that's how they feel. And you have an obligation to highlight that. Even when you disagree, you have to discuss it if that's their position.
Yes, you do. And you can't blame a person for feeling the way they do. However,
I don't.
And I understand that, but when someone makes a statement, it's automatically fact, and it's run through the media, and it's run through sports shows as fact before anything's investigated.
But Jimmy, what I would say to you is I would beg to differ with that, and I respect where you're coming from, but I would beg to differ, and here's why. The fact is what they said they felt, not whether they're right. Now, if you automatically attach veracity and truth to a person's statement just because that's how they feel, then your argument is legit. But if somebody feels that they were victimized and they believe this is the cause, and you and I were not there, we didn't experience what was said, we didn't experience or see in its totality how things were handled, and that's what they walked away with, particularly when you're Michael Bennett, and you were as outspoken as he was, and you were threatening to sue the Las Vegas Police Department. Didn't you see, Jimmy, when they had the press conference? To defend themselves? They had a press conference to defend themselves and to address the accusations that were levied against them. What you're saying is tantamount to saying they should have just ignored it and not had a press conference. No, you have to. Because if you're going to get accused of such a thing, and the story is going to percolate and circulate to that degree, particularly in these times that we're living in at this particular moment in time, where racial sensitivities are just heightened across the board, then obviously you're going to take those things seriously and you're going to address them accordingly. But the Las Vegas Police Department came out and told you what their position was. And that was that. What I do on this show is I make sure everybody understands that everybody's side is heard. No matter what my side is, no matter what your side is, or anybody else's for that matter. I make sure all sides are heard to the best of my ability, because to me, that's how we progress as a society. Our willingness, Jimmy, to tackle those sensitive issues and to talk about it from all angles. Like I specifically said, I don't find Laura Ingraham to be a racist. I thought what she said was racially insensitive. Why did I think that way? Because I knew how someone black would take that. And she knew that. Why would you do that? That's what I said. Right. In no circumstances did I call her anything. And I wouldn't. That would be irresponsible.
I hear you, Stephen A., but I just can't see how you could say she knows what she was saying. You're putting words in her mouth one way. But one last thing, if you could. Yeah,
because I only got 30 seconds. Go ahead.
You got it. Could you please explain to us, the viewers, the listeners, since 2000, Mark Cuban's been fined, what, $2.6 million, $3 million?
Yes. Go ahead.
Has any of that been about commenting towards another player? I'm just curious.
I don't know. I got to look that up. I honestly don't know. That's the God's honest truth. I don't know, Jimmy. But I'll check into it. I'll check into it and find out whether or not that's the case. It was usually for complaining about the official, to be quite honest with you, as opposed to another player. But with Mark Cuban, you can't rule out anything. We got to get on out of here for the day. Thank y'all for joining me today. I'll be back 22 hours from now. Hopefully the New York Knicks will at least make tonight's game competitive. I'm praying for it. I'm praying. Let's go Knicks! And by the way, Magic Johnson should not have been fined. Talk to you in 22 hours. Peace and love.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.